change the outline depending on what outfit our players are wearing for each time. You know, just heads up production, that would be cool. But I mean, this is the cool thing with this format. You know, we're now in 2023. It's official. All the time zones have caught up to that fact. And we're now being able to play this amazing format with open team sheets, new Pokemon, new abilities, new items. Everything is totally wild. And a lot of our trainers here today are trying to use this kind of event as a last chance practice for the San Diego Regionals at the weekend.
Yeah, and as you can see, there's going to be a lot of Pokemon that you'll be familiar with from ladder. You'll be seeing Hector's Pokemon team on stream for you right now, which is that Garchomp, Goldingo, Meowscarada, Hydreigon, Azumarill, and Murkrow. So not a big surprise to a lot of you who might have been laddering, whereas Chase is using Grimmsnarl, Garchomp, Goldingo, Corviknight, Hydreigon, and Skeledirge.
Yeah, I really like seeing the combination of Pokemon here. There's so many that have emerged into dominance straight away, like Goldingo with its good as gold ability as well, just being so disruptive, not allowing you to go for any of those status moves onto it, and then it can just make it rain all day long and just do so much damage, spread damage, steel type damage, particularly if you want to go for the terrestrialization of steel type as well, get an extra boost. It's just so devastating. So we have seen a lot of Pokemon making sure that there are counters on the opposing team. Both of our trainers here are running that Goldingo. You again have Pokemon, for example, like Hydreigon can go for those dark type moves and deal big damage into the Goldingo on, you know, either side again. The Pokemon I have my eye on though is that Meowscarada, not only because it's a cat, which is super adorable, and FYI best starter.
I don't know. I think the best starter is on the other team, that Skeledirge, Team Fuecoco all the way.
It's number 2. Like, kitty cat's got a rule, okay? But that's the thing with the cat as well. It's super, super fast. It has an insane speed stat. It can go for, you know, Flower Trick, always get that critical hit, and of course knock off as well. A great move in any format.
And we've got Corviknight and Hydreigon starting here with Chase with Murkrow and Goldingo. Murkrow, also one of those Pokemon I think was very interesting, just shot up straight to the top of the meta. All of a sudden, you know, Covert Cloak, making sure that you can't get those secondary effects on it, and free to set up Tailwind. So a really popular Pokemon, I think surprising to a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. You know, this lead coming out from Hector reminds me of Marcus' status lead at the Stuttgart Regional Championship side event, because he literally just clicked Tailwind, make it rain, and just was so disruptive to all of his opponents on the other side. I think it's wise then having Pokemon like Hydreigon going for the Protect here, and a Steel type in the form of Corviknight, not going to worry about those make it rain moves.
Yeah, Murkrow right there going for that Tailwind, that ability Prankster, making sure that it can always go first with that priority. Goldingo actually going for a Thunderbolt, no Make It Rain, is going to land a super effective damage onto that Corviknight, and gets a paralysis as well on top of that, slowing down that Corviknight even more. Corviknight is actually going to be eating a berry here. It's going to be a citrus berry just to like heal up a little bit of that health, so that's very super effective damage. Gonna be a little bit mitigated, is going to round out this turn with the Tailwind as well to match it, but that paralysis is going to slow it down.
Yeah, paralysis is really unfortunate. You can see how much like damage that Goldingo is able to deal out. Obviously, we're in open team sheets here. Goldingo often running that Choice Specs item, and that's the option here that Hector has gone for. You can see how much extra damage that Thunderbolt's able to deal. Not surprised to see Corviknight get out of there and bring in the Garchomp ground type Pokemon. Not going to worry about a Thunderbolt.
Yeah, so now that it's been locked into that Specs, but Hydreigon to be faster here, is going to pick up that knockout on that Goldingo. The Hydreigon actually carrying a Life Orb, going to take a little bit of damage and lose some of that HP because of it. Murkrow going for an Icy Wind, a little bit more form of speed control here, going to catch that Garchomp in on that switch, is going to knock down the speed stages of both of these, and with both of them matching Tailwinds, is going to at least try to make sure that its teammates are going to be a little bit faster. We see Hector also having a Hydreigon with a Life Orb as well, is going to match Chase's.
I mean, you mentioned earlier, Regina, Murkrow kind of was the surprise nobody saw coming, and you can see exactly why. His potential's great for speed control, not only getting up that Prankster Tailwind, but also having the utility for Icy Wind, so that with Tailwind being so dominant in the format, you're likely going to end up with kind of a stalemate with it on both sides of the field. So having the Icy Wind still does give you that advantage, and it's nice to get the damage onto 2 Dragon Pokemon as well, dealing that extra damage.
Yeah, and I actually really like that that the Murkrow is one of those that has a lot of ways to fix what might happen. Haze has been super popular. I think the last time we saw it was just whenever you had a bunch of boosts going on. Chase, I want to say that was Chase's side. Sorry, there's 2 Hydreigons now on the field, so it's going to be a matter of which Hydreigon is which. That one is going to be a Fire Terra though, so it is going to be Hector's Hydreigon, but Chase is going to be matching with a Terra type as well, and his Terra type is actually also going to be on the Hydreigon, but this time it's going to be a Steel type Terra, so a little bit different. Chase, you know, it's going to be in a little bit of trouble if there's a Heat Wave on Hector's Hydreigon, which actually you can see there is. But Hydreigon's, oh no! Garchomp avoiding that. As Garchomp goes for the rock slide, something avoided, Murkrow avoided, which is fine.
Oh, it's a double!
It's a double miss! Oh no! Mirko was able to get that Icy Wind down onto both of those Pokemon. Is going to knock him down another speed stage. And you know, just extra like salt in the wind, that critical hit on Garchomp. But I mean, whoa, what a wild turn for that one. Oof.
I mean, it's New Year's Day, I get that, but these Pokemon need to wake up a little bit and start connecting those moves. Hydreigon takes a huge stack of damage from the opposing Hydreigon on Chase's side. I mean, the Terra types are really interesting here. It's really nice to see Pokemon types such as Steel and Fire being utilized in this way, because obviously their biggest type weakness is going to be that ground type, but Hydreigon having that levitate ability means these types don't have to worry about it. So you can see where these defensive capabilities come in. Steel, particularly on Chase's side, is one of the most defensive types that you can get in the game. So nice to have it here without running the risk of those ground type moves. It is going to go for a Protect though in the face of Hector's Pokemon here.
And Chase switching out that Garchomp, going to protect that Garchomp for one more turn, brings back in that Corviknight, is going to have to take a Heat Wave from Hector's Hydreigon, which is going to do super effective damage thanks to that. But the Corviknight avoids it as well. What is up with all these Pokemon dodging things left and right? Because I was going to say that Rock Slide miss was so important.
It definitely was.
Here. But Corviknight was like, no, not today. Everyone's just dodging moves left and right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and of course Mirror Armor, you know, allowing the Corviknight to be able to throw that drop actually back onto the Murkrow. I mean, Murkrow is a Pokemon that can take it, you know, having Prankster and things like that. It can still go for its own Tailwind, doesn't have to worry about it. But I'm actually surprised how long Hector's been able to have this Murkrow on the field. You're right, that Rock Slide was so pivotal. The Rock Slide would have been able to just remove it completely, forcing Hector to bring a Pokemon in from the back. But instead, Murkrow's here having a great time with all of these Pokemon that are up in the air right now.
Yeah, everything's everything's flying. It's great. It's so wild that I've never seen that many misses back to back, or like Pokemon avoiding it. Hydreigon on Chase's side is going to be returned. Garchomp's going to hit back that field, going to have its speed reset thanks to the fact that he did was right. But actually a double switch from Chase as Corviknight also is being returned. We're going to see Skeledirge, the best starter. I will die on that hill.
Well, at least we can agree that it's not Quaxley, so we'll stick with that. Tailwind comes up on Hector's side once again, as Hydreigon does go for the Heat Wave. A nice adjustment from Chase, bringing in this Fire-type Pokemon of the Skeledirge, going to be able to take this. But for Garchomp, it is actually still too much. The boost that you get from that Terra type, just allowing the Hydreigon to be able to get the KO against it here. Obviously, it's going to take that little bit of Life Orb recoil and will KO itself in return, but it does allow Hector the opportunity to now switch out the ball position on his side as well.
Yeah, I think though, if you're Chase, like that Garchomp was on its last legs anyway. Your Hydreigon is the one that has like the Terra typing, and it has the Life Orb, like that extra damage that was still in a pretty good shape. So I don't think you wanted to risk going for like that double protect and give yourself that extra turn. But Azumarill is going to be the last Pokemon here for Hector, and Hydreigon returns to us on the field.
Yeah, you know, I like the Azumarill in the face of the Skelligers, but Hydreigon being able to have that Steel typing as well just makes it so defensive in the face of this Azumarill. Obviously, you know, Azumarill we know can pack a really heavy punch with something like a Play Rough, but having changed your typing to that Steel type is, again, showing the defensive capabilities the Terra type can give to Pokemon when they're in a pinch.
And Hydreigon protecting itself on the turn as Azumarill goes for Liquidation right onto that Skeledirge. Ooh. Barely misses that knockout on Skeledirge, but Mirko, instead of actually being able to pick up that last bit of HP, is going to go into that protected Hydreigon spot, allowing the Skeledirge to go for a Torch Song. Its specialty move here, which does raise its special attack by one stage, is going to do some decent damage on that Mirko, but Mirko, the only Pokemon here who has stayed on the field consistently.
Yeah, Murkrow's being an absolute champ right now, just staying here. It can still be disruptive with things, but ultimately it's not the damage dealer. That's all going to really fall on Azumarill soldiers here. It's able to go for the Liquidation again, but I think the issue is that Hydreigon, what do you really have to take it down? You're only going to be able to deal neutral damage with something like a Liquidation at this point.
Yeah, and I think the other factor for me about keeping Mirko on the field is you're allowing another Tailwind to go up, which means more speed control to have to deal with. And Mirko just staying there. I mean, like, you know what? When it expires and I'm still here, we're going to set up that same turn and you're going to have to deal with this all over again. Especially just now that Skeledirge and Hydreigon are... I mean, Skeledirge specifically just on its, like, last sort of, like, 4 legs to have... Like, taking any hit is going to hurt it. And it is going to go for Protect this turn, I think, trying to see what Hector might be doing on this turn. As Liquidation from Azumarill is going to connect with Hydreigon.
Oh, it does.
Is enough to pick up the knockout here. Hydreigon going to go down, leaving Skeledirge to have to deal with 2 Pokemon now and not a lot of HP left on it.
I mean, that's the thing, you know, Azumarill actually able to come through and say, actually, Liquidation is going to be able to get that KO, you know, don't doubt me on this side of the field. And you're right, now you've got the Skeledirge in a really difficult situation. Azumarill as well, known to run something like Aqua Jet, it's going to be able to have that priority move, pick up the KO against the Skeledirge, regardless of what speed control things like the Murkrow wants to throw its way. The issue is the Corviknight. I mean, Corviknight's in a really difficult spot again. It has been paralyzed. It could potentially run the chance of getting that full power and being unable to move. But I think Corviknight's the Pokemon that's going to have to try and deal with this Azumarill. Azumarill, we know as well, is carrying the Assault Vest items. The special attacks aren't going to be dealing too much damage. That's why the physical moves need to come into effect here. And Corviknight's really going to be looking to try and remove this threat to help out Skeledirge.
This is going to be one of those moments, I think, where if that paralysis from turn 1 comes into play here, it's just going to be so devastating. Liquidation going to pick up the knockout here on that Skeledirge. Was able to get one Torch Song in, but is unfortunately knocked out now. And Murkrow going for that Brave Bird, so one of the few other damage-dealing moves it has. Barely, manages to... I think it took more damage from the recoil than anything else, but Brave Bird from Corviknight going into the Azumarill is not going to be nearly enough for a couple of turns now that both of these Pokemon are going to be able to attack consistently into that Corviknight.
Exactly, and Brave Bird as well, you mentioned the recoil, that's going to affect the Corviknight as well, and Azumarill having all of that juicy HP that it had at the beginning of this turn means that all that recoil is just going to go against the Corviknight, so Hector's going to be able to take game 1 here.
Yeah, it was really interesting, I think, that the fact that everything was dodging and missing is in a way I think was pivotal to that game, right? You have a double rock slide miss, which you could have had a flinch chance maybe for the Murkrow, but more importantly you missed the knockout on a Hydreigon, and then just the returning one, the Draco meter miss too for Hector's Hydreigon against Chase's. All of a sudden you're in a spot where like you have to really think, okay, what could I have done for that turn instead? Oy.
I mean, Murkrow was so pivotal. You said it avoided that rock slide that just allowed it to stay on the field and go for those tailwinds constantly, particularly when, if you're Hector, you were able to remove the tailwind setter on Chase's side in the form of that Corviknight very early on. It had to go into the back. It wasn't able to deal a lot of pressure, so until Chase was able to get it out into the field, it wasn't going to be able to set the tailwind back up. And as we saw when it came back in, it didn't have a lot of HP remaining, so it had to switch onto the offensive. There's no point going for the tailwind if you're not going to be able to deal the damage and get the KOs. It's going to be a wasted turn. And I think that was the key thing that Hector was able to do, was kind of remove that threat very early on and allow that Murkrow to stay. You can obviously talk about the roll of the dice, the Draco media miss, the rock slide miss, there was an Icy Wind miss in there as well, but hey, that's Pokemon at the end of the day, and I still think both these players played well to that out to the end of this game. Game 2, going to be interesting to see if they bring the same combination of Pokemon.
Yeah, I also find it wild that, you're running a Choice Specs to Goldango and then locking yourself into that Thunderbolt just like turn 1, because then you have to decide, like, Chase bringing in that Garchomp and forcing sort of like a switch or like some way to reset that. But Hydreigon and Corviknight, so actually the same lead here from Chase, and Hydreigon and Goldango, so a little bit of a switch here from Hector, but we've got the Hydreigons back on the field.
Yeah, Goldango's in a difficult situation though. We saw Hydreigon obviously outspeeds it and can go for something like that Dark Pulse and just remove it from the field without having that Tailwind support with something like the Murkrow beside it. It's not going to get that instant speed boost and wait for the Hydreigon on the opposing side to catch up necessarily. So Corviknight's in a good position to maybe go straight away for something like that Tailwind. We know that it can take a Thunderbolt, and at the end of the day, we know that the Goldango can't move before that Hydreigon.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think we saw Hector kind of walk into terrestrializing here for going for a Heat Wave. I think speed control is going to be one of like the bigger factors for this specific matchup. I know that speed is always a sort of a big thing in Pokemon, but I think more especially the fact that you're having things like Hydreigon, which, if you're facing multiple Hydreigons, you want to make sure that you have that speed advantage because you want to be able to like lay down that damage really early on. Terrestrializing here, the fire type, which we saw was Hector's earlier. Chase is going to have his own steel type. Oh no, if he's going for that steel type here, that's going to be a rough time for both that Corviknight and for that Hydreigon. Oh no, it's on the Corviknight. It's going to be a water Corviknight. So Corviknight's just like, hey, I don't like fire, so we're just going to splash some water on and make it a little bit better for us overall.
Yeah, that gives it the breathing room that it needs to be able to take one of these Heat Waves. The Hydreigon on the opposing side for Chase is going to protect as well, just preserving itself as the Heat Wave comes out from the Hydreigon on Hector's side. Obviously not going to be able to deal any damage to the opposing Hydreigon and will connect down onto the opposing Corviknight. But this is key. It allows Chase to get that Tailwind up.
Yeah, the Corviknight takes that like a champ. Hydreigon having to lose some of that HP because of that Life Orb. Make it rain from Goldango. Obviously not going to hit into Chase's Hydreigon, which did protect this turn, but will connect with that Corviknight. Does some decent damage, gets it down to about half health, but the special attack is going to fall here on that Goldango because of that move. Citrus Berry from Corviknight is going to give back a little bit of HP into that, allowing it to at least still move this turn, going for that Tailwind. Again, a super pivotal sort of mechanic now more than like ever, I feel. Like Tailwind, Icy Wind, all of that stuff is just so much more important in this format.
Definitely. Speed control is key, because particularly when a meta is starting to kind of feel itself out a little bit. All the teams are very hyper offensive, so having that speed control just gives you the momentum to start snowballing through an opposing team. I probably would have quite liked to see the Thunderbolt come out again from Goldengo on Hector's side here, particularly as a Corviknight. You are aware from the open team sheets, if it does want to terrestrialize, it's going to be water type anyway. Again, doesn't appreciate those electric type moves, so I think it's nice here from Hector to switch out, reset that special attack drop that it got from Make It Rain, and allow it to have a little bit more dominance later on. Azumarill's going to join the fray for now.
Oh, and Dark Pulse from Hydreigon going to the Azumarill, who takes that like a champ as well. Hydreigon on Chase's side losing that HP from Life Orb, as Corviknight doubles down into what was that Goldengo spot. That Azumarill taking a chunk of damage from that switch in. Hydreigon now matching Tailwinds to match Chase's Corviknight Tailwind, giving that speed control a little bit more equal footing here.
Yeah, and Azumarill, great with its fairy typing coming in, being able to take that Dark Pulse really nicely from Hydreigon. And now Hydreigon's in a difficult situation. We know it can't terrestrialize here. It could have to potentially take a play rough from the Azumarill. It doesn't have to worry about Hydreigon, though. That is gone by one of those powerful Draco Meteors.
I love that we see that move a lot more often, because the introduction of fairy types has made dragons so less popular, and it's been fun to see sort of the resurgence here. So Hector's Hydreigon going down as Azumarill is able to hold on with 5 HP left.
Now, can it connect the play rough? Yes, it can, but it goes into Corviknight, actually. Doesn't get the KO. Corviknight's able to hang on. A sigh of relief, I'm sure, is being breathed by that Hydreigon on Chase's side.
I don't know how they're feeling right now, but it has to be the same where I am. My heart is pounding right now, watching just these slivers of HP left every single time. And seeing all of that just makes it feel like you have to think so fast on your feet on how to adjust now that things are fainting or not fainting.
Well, now things come into interesting situations with the speed. There's Tailwind up on both sides of the field, I believe. So now Goldengo comes back into the fray. We know Goldengo carrying those choice specs doesn't have the utility to be able to protect. So Chase's Hydreigon here going to be in a good position to go for something like a Dark Pulse once again. Azumarill can go for that priority if it wants to, but it's deciding not to. It's just going to be KO'd by the Dark Pulse here. Hydreigon knowing, hey, actually, I have a good chance to be able to survive a lot of what this Goldengo sends my way. And Corviknight, it's in a dangerous situation. Dazzling Gleam comes out. It is going to be able to get the double KO, however. That choice spec's really pulling in the work, giving it that boost to its special attack.
Yeah, I wonder if it's one of those moments where you're thinking, okay, I think the Azumarill might be a little bit more of a threat because it has that fairy typing and it has the priority Aqua Jet, right? And you're like, if I'm faster than the Goldengo, then I can take care of that later. Now that Hector has just that one extra turn of speed advantage because Chase has been able to set up his Tailwind first. So now you're in a spot where Goldengo is actually still kind of terrifying. You do know that it's locked into that Dazzling Gleam, and Chase has actually brought his own Goldengo, and the Skeledirge. So knowing that, hey, I'm gonna have to take Dazzling Gleams and there's no way to reset that, now as Chase you're in a spot where okay, I have to work around that.
Yeah, you're completely right. If you're Hector, you are stuck now with that Dazzling Gleam, and Dazzling Gleam is something Goldengo doesn't worry about too much on the opposing side. It doesn't have to worry about a potential switch to a Shadow Ball. Choice Spec is locking into that Dazzling Gleam. You can see how minimal damage it is dealing. So if you're Chase, you really just have to find a way to and quite easily deal with this Murkrow. Something like a Make It Rain and a Torch Song is just going to be able to clean up this match and force a game 3.
Yeah, that Freight Bird actually did some way more damage than I would expect from a Murkrow specifically. But like you said, just sort of a quick cleanup here at the end. As Torch Song should be able to just pick up the knockout here on Goldengo. We see that, actually, nope, that is a lie. It did not pick up the knockout. It does get a plus special attack, but we saw that Dazzling Gleam basically did nothing. So now you're in the spot where you're thinking about sort of that game 3 and what could have gone different. I think the Corviknight terrestrializing was just so smart on Chase's end.
I completely agree. It gave Chase that defensive position right out of the blocks of this game 2 as well to be able to survive Heat Wave and just allow Corviknight a bit more longevity on the field. You have to see as well, this is one of the issues that you have with something like choice specs. Yes, on a Pokemon like Goldengo, particularly if you stack it up with something like, say it was Make It Rain, and you also terrestrialize into a Steel type, for example, and you're getting all of those stat boosts from same type attack bonus, getting your choice specs boost, getting the terrestrialized boost you get as well. It can just deal insane damage, and it's horrendous. However, you're then locked into it, and particularly a move like Make It Rain as well, you get the special attack drops, and if you're in a position where you're unable to switch out, not only are you going to have to keep those drops, you're going to have to keep getting those drops because you're locked into the move and you don't have that flexibility. And unfortunately, that's what we saw in this situation. Dazzling Gleam was fantastic to get the double KO on both those Pokemon, right, Corviknight and the Hydreigon, but then for the end game situation, it allowed Chase a way back into that match.
And what's actually interesting about Make It Rain too is that usually you can help mitigate the drops with something like Helping Hand or give a boost, but because of Good as Gold, nothing like that ever touches it. It's sort of wild just how what a double-edged sword a lot of the abilities are this generation. Just good as gold, and then Unaware and Oblivious, like, it's great, but it also ignores the special attack drops that your opponents will have for Draco Meter. So it's kind of fascinating to see how things have changed here. We are seeing a little bit of another change from Hector, who's locking into the same floor, just a little bit of a different order this time.
You know, sometimes that can be the adjustment that you need. I mean, obviously Hector won game 1, Chase came back really dominantly towards the end of that game 2, and now both these players, you have that situation. Do you go with the leads in the combination that won you the game that you did win, or you have to eventually play the player a little bit as well and kind of suss out what your opponent's going to go, and then do you make a read into that, and next thing you know, you're overthinking, and that's why I commentate, I don't play. Like, it's too much for me.
I play to try to figure out, but confession time, have played 0 games yet, and San Diego is next. This counts as playing a game, right? Absolutely.
It counts on some level. I mean, you know, this is also thinking. Our prep for San Diego.
Yeah. We'll be cheering on everybody and being like, oh yeah, we saw this match. What do we have to do? We're not quite sure. Actually, another change here as well for Chase going to be Corviknight and Garchomp. Didn't bring Garchomp last game, I don't think, but Hydreigon and Goldango is going to be the lead of choice here. So 2 Tailwind setters, just a little bit different this time.
Yeah, and of course the Hydreigon on Hector's side in a position where it can actually do so many options. It can go for the Draco Meteor and wipe out that Garchomp very easily on Chase's side. It can maybe try and Terrestrialize and go for that Heat Wave again. You know, it's going to deal significant damage to Corviknight if Corviknight doesn't want to go for its Terrestrialization here. And I think on Chase's side, you have so many great Pokemon utilities to Terrestrialize. You know, things like, again, we've seen the Corviknight with Water type. You can go for Hydreigon with Steel type. There's so many defensive capabilities that are possible here. So which one do you want to go for? Do you want to go for it early on, but then you're locked in? You don't get the option to Terrestrialize later on in the match. So it's going to be interesting to see how they decide to play out this game 3, whether it's going to be a little bit more of a long game or if we're going to go straight on the offensive. And it's actually going to be Garchomp going for that ground terrestrialization form, so going to be boosting up all of its ground type moves here. In this case, it's going to be either Earthquake or Stomping Tantrum.
Which, interesting because there's a Hydreigon on the other side, but Stomping Tantrum is going to be boosted. That's a scary Stomping Tantrum. Is going to go into that Goldengo, connects, is able to pick up the knockout here. That is a huge KO there. That is one of the better damage dealers on Hector's side. And to be able to pick up that knockout, I probably won't be able to match here. That Hydreigon does barely any damage to that Corviknight. Is going to have to take 2 special attack stage drops for its troubles, as well as that HP loss from Life Orb. As Corviknight is like, hey, I'm sitting easy here, and I'm going to be setting up that Tailwind. Didn't have to worry about that Thunderbolt. So, you know, correctly identifying Goldango is such a threat to Chase's side.
I mean, I really like the Stomping Tantrum option here. The Garchomp is Choice Scarf, so it does have that speed advantage. And yes, you've got your Corviknight next to you. It's flying at the moment. You can, you know, go for an Earthquake. It's not going to deal anything, but it may not stay that way for long. Corviknight could obviously go for a Terrestrialization, or it could switch out. And then Garchomp has the unfortunate situation where it's going to hurt its partner Pokemon. So I think going for the Stomping Tantrum is really nice. The issue, however, for Garchomp now is both the Pokemon on Hector's side are not going to be hit by a ground type move, so it is going to have to switch out anyway for Chase.
And Chase is like, well, nothing's going to get hit. I mean, so we'll just bring in his own Goldango, having gotten rid of the opponent's Goldango here. And now Hector is actually going to be like, hey, you know what? Now that you can't Terrestrialize into water, Corviknight, there's no reason I can't go back into this fire one. Maybe click Heat Wave. Saw the Murkrow actually click Haze earlier, which, again, really great to see sort of that move come back into popularity with everything going on. Is going to make sure that those special attack drops from that Draco Meter are no longer going to be affecting this Hydreigon. Going to be at full power now. Oh, Corviknight going for a body press though. Does barely any damage into this Hydreigon. Hydreigon with that boosted Terra type Heat Wave into a Goldango, and a Corviknight with just barely misses the knockout on the Goldango. That Goldango though, is that a weakness spot? No, that was.
Yeah,
oh my god, the weakness policy Goldango. Okay, what? Okay, as far as items go for Goldango, I was not expecting.
No, me neither.
On there, and we have the team piece in front of us, so that's on us right now. But I was assuming something like choice specs, right?
Hey, we still like to be surprised from time to time as well. We don't want to reveal everything straight away for ourselves. But you're completely right. Going for that Heat Wave, destructive damage into the Corviknight, and Goldango nearly getting knocked out as well. I mean, Goldango, the weakness policy surprises me because it isn't necessarily the bulkiest of Pokemon. It has so many types that it can take lots of damage from. Garchomp, however, is still speedy and it's going to go for the Rock Slide.
If you can get a flinch here, then this might. Oh no!
Oh no! Hydreigon breaks through. Does go for that Heat Wave. It is going to be able to connect on both Pokemon. You can still see it's a significant chunk to that opposing Garchomp, but we've seen the speed stats laid out there.
I think will it get knocked out here by the Life Orb Recall? Yeah. So the Life Orb Recall is going to be able to knock out that Hydreigon. I don't know how much of a trade that is though for you if you're Chase, right? Like obviously Goldango going down is sort of a problem. You are now locked into Rock Slide with with the Garchomp, we see Azumarill is the last one. We know it has Liquidation. We've seen Aqua Jet. It hasn't quite used Aqua Jet yet, but you know it's a perfect like move to use against something like Garchomp. And the Tailwind was set up from the Murkrow this turn.
Yeah, and Hydreigon's coming to the field again. It doesn't want to take something like the Play Rough from the opposing Azumarill here, but then Azumarill has the issue that it wants to target both the opposing Pokemon, right? You want to go for a Water type move into Garchomp because those Rock Slides are still going to hurt. Aqua Jet not enough to pick up the KO against it. However, Garchomp is going to be able to retaliate with a Rock Slide. Now, has it learned its lesson from its partners?
It doesn't seem like it has.
No, it avoids Azumarill.
Oh no, Murkrow goes down this turn, but that's not the
yeah, it's not the one.
We've been okay with like missing on this turn. Azumarill is going to be free to go for like an Aqua Jet again next turn. Dark Pulse from Hydreigon we saw did very minimal damage here into that Azumarill, and I don't actually think that there's many other moves that it can use to land into that. We've seen the Draco Meter, which isn't gonna touch that at all. But Garchomp actually going for Rockslide. No Aqua Jet here. If this flinches, like Hector might actually be in. Oh no!
Oh, it does get the flinch.
Oh, that flinch is so rough. Flash Cannon here from Hydreigon got connected to the Azumarill. Actually might be enough damage next turn to be able to do it. So a Rock Slide. If you don't knock out this Garchomp, you might be able to. No. So Garchomp able to pick up the knockout here on the Rock Slide. That endgame was a little
you can see what Hector was trying to do though. At the end of the day, like, yes, you can pick up the KO against that opposing Garchomp, but Rock Slide not only has the chance to miss, but you could see, despite the flinch, it was able to survive one of those. Right. It even survived the second one. So you can kind of say, hey, I can run the risk of taking Rock Slide damage, and if I go for Play Rough and deal with the Hydreigon, at least I don't have to worry about the Dark Pulse that was dealing a little bit more damage.
Right.
So I think trying to be like, hey, Garchomp can miss, maybe that gives me the lucky break I need. I can deal with Hydreigon